So we've been talking about Africa, seeing Africa for some persons as the economic engine of the world. But what is more to this continent that we are talking about?
That the purpose of government must be what he described as salus populis suprema lex ethos, meaning let the welfare of the people be the supreme law pursued by government anytime, any day. It is the inability for leadership to emerge that has kept us where we are. Why should I be buying fuel for 1,350 naira per liter? Why? To come to this studio, I have to walk because there is little fuel in the car. I need to maintain it. 1,350. I don't know because I've not gone for today. If I go to buy today, I don't know if it will be 1,000. It doesn't work like that. And then you say you are running a democracy. Democracy cannot help Africa to be resilient.
In a continent that is the second largest and populous in the whole wide world, where is our place of value in leading other countries in the world? What's our position of value in leading the top countries in the whole wide world? Welcome. This is Uproot the Issue podcast, a self-growth, family life, and societal development podcast that seeks in-depth truth behind issues people are facing. And I am always your host. Please feel free at any point to call me Ekemini Ekwere. In our today's episode, we'll be looking at the Africa's resilience, a strength for global leadership. So we've been talking about Africa, seeing Africa for some persons as the economic engine of the world. But what is more to this continent that we are talking about? I am so glad in this talk show room to have a son of the soil. He is a Pan-Africanist, he is a political analyst, and he's also the Associate Professor of Political and Administrative Theories in a reputable institution here in Nigeria. Dr. Etim Frank, joining me in the studio today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Please get to say a word or two to our audience.
Well, audience, thanks for being there. I hope we are going to make justice to this topic and guide you properly.
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for honoring this invitation. Okay, so Doctor, let's get started. Doctor, please, let's know what resilience is in the context of Africa.
The capacity to resist, to stand on your own, the capacity to be self-reliant, the capacity to harness the resources available to you and use it for advancing the welfare of the people of the continent. Because every human being on earth seeks to improve his or her life. And you've submitted yourself to government. And it is the business of government to harness the resources God has placed around you and use it for the welfare of the people. Government anywhere stand on three legs, just like this table. This table, I guess, is four, but government anywhere, at the local government level, at the state level, at the international level, at the federal and international level, stands on three legs.
Okay.
These three legs, when I analyze government to my student, I refer you to the ceremonial pot we use in this part of the world, Akwa Ibom. We have big pots that has three legs, and then all you need to do, they use for ceremony, you put firewood underneath, yes, and then you cook that type of pot. That big pot is government. Now, these three legs means one, happiness is the highest good of man. In the 4th century BCE, before Christ, a man called Aristotle, the father of political science, said happiness is the highest good of man. What you are doing in this studio is because you are happy about it.
Yes.
And therefore, Aristotle said, since man must live in a state, the first business of the state is to ensure the happiness of the man. Harness the resources. That's why government takes away your resources. The crude oil you have here, everything, to harness it for your happiness. So that's number one leg of the pot. Number two, Aristotle is a Greek, It was from the Greek city-state of Athens. After the collapse of the Greek civilization, came Roman civilization, Roman power. Now, in Rome, when Roman power arose and covered the world, a man called Marcus Tullius Cicero advised the government of Rome that the purpose of government must be what he described as salum populis suprema lex ethos, meaning let the welfare of the people be the supreme law pursued by government anytime, any day. Again, you see the human welfare is up there. Thirdly, the third leg of the pot was coined and by a man called Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, two of them.
Yeah.
They brought up the theory called utilitarianism, saying, hey, government, whatever you do at all times, the government must generate the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people in the state, in the country, in the continent. So, for me, government stands on these three legs. If you check the American Constitution, check the Constitution of world government everywhere, those three elements are there. The happiness of the people, the supreme goal of government, the security of the people. So that is it. Now, the question you ask me then is...
The resilient.
The resilient. The resilient African continent, the 54 countries in Africa, must be resilient enough to harness their resources to meet these three goals I have enunciated, being the goals of government.
Okay, Doctor. Doctor, if I can understand you, I can quickly recall that there's a theory you propounded called the theory of the clenched fist. So, Doctor, please, let's understand this theory in the context of this our discussion, Africa's resilience.
Beautiful. Every person in Africa and everywhere in the world, when you were born into the world, you were born with a clenched fist. Every child. If in the African context, you go to a hospital ward and find a child born today with an arm open, you will give a name to it. You will attribute it to a certain spirit.
Yes.
Okay? So it is natural. Everybody comes with clenched fist. Clenched fist is because you are coming naked into the world, nowhere to hide anything. So the next thing any child can do is clench the fist and hide the fundamental human rights you are coming in from heaven or wherever you are coming from, to hide it there. Because you don't know your father. You don't know your mother. They are strange people. They are only avenue for you to come into the world. And so because you don't trust them, you have to hide what you came into the world with. So you have the clenched fist in there. When they open your arm and wash you and clean you up, after that you close your hand back. Okay. You don't know these guys. You don't want them to take the thing you came with.
Yes.
It is after 6 months, 1 year, and you find out that these human beings, the father, the mother, which you come through, are tossing you, are not hurting you. They care for you from day one till you win.
Yes.
And they've not hurt you. Then the confidence come. You build the trust. You build the confidence that they will not take away the thing you brought from heaven into the world, which are what we call fundamental human rights, inalienable rights of man, which you came into the world. Nobody gave it to you. That is why every law in the world, in civilized country, is that you can't take away fundamental freedom from people. Dictatorial regime, authoritarian regime, democracy, regime of all types, seek to protect those rights. Okay? So that is the theory of the clenched fist. You hide your rights because you don't trust the people around you. When you have come of age and you trust them, they won't take it away from you, then you can open your arms, shake somebody, and still keep your right and move on with your life.
Wow, this is a very fantastic conversation so far. When we talk about the resilience of Africa, we are looking at the ability of Africa to resist, the ability of Africa, the strength of Africa to harness the resources endowed on this particular continent so that we can grow, we can achieve happiness for everyone. So if you are meeting this particular podcast for the first time, please jump on the subscription icon and click on the buttons so that you'll be posted and updated with further videos coming. I am with Dr. Etim Frank, and we are having this conversation on Africa's resilience as strength for global leadership. So join us. Let's get the roll dicing again. So, Doctor, you see, I believe that over time we have witnessed some form of control by foreign forces. And so if we look at history, we'll see that it's been 140 years since Africa was shared at the Berlin Conference. So, Doctor, how has this experience shaped or maimed Africa's leadership?
Quite interesting, quite interesting. The events you referred to was for the colonial interests that have come and gone. But the question to ask is this: since independence, what have we done with the authority we have? We cannot. I'm not of the school that will continue to blame the colonialists for our problem up to date. Nigeria, 60-something years of independence. Look at where we are. Look at the development indices in the country, very low. And so we cannot. It is the inability for leadership to emerge that has kept us where we are. I tell you something. 1994, a country called Rwanda was under siege. They had what you call genocide. Two major ethnic groups, Hutus and Tutsi. For about 90 days, they killed over 8 million of themselves because of ethnic crisis between the Hutus and Tutsi. The world failed them. The United Nations failed them to come to stop that kind of carnage. Now, everything in that country was destroyed. 94. Today, as we speak, that country is the cleanest in Africa, is becoming Singapore of Africa. Everything is sweet. I'm not talking from reading from book. I've been there 4 times, in fact 5 times. As I'm talking to you upper week, I'm going to be there. And when I go there to do what I do, I open my eyes to look at it. Clean street. Check, just Google. The cleanest state capital in Africa in 54 countries is Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. Now, what has happened? Leadership. Now, guess what? What type of leadership? What I call in my own language, benevolent dictatorship. That's what is happening there. Benevolent dictatorship. This is because democracy has failed Africa. Democracy will not enable Africa to be resilient, which is your concern. You know what? In democracy, a man called Socrates hated democracy. He said because of democracy, what we call majoritarian tyranny will always prevail. Those who claim to be majority will always have power and use power in their interests, which may not be in the interests of all. He said, even thieves, fraudster, will get into government through democracy because of their oratory power, because of their ability to use money, because of their ability to use many other things, and they get into power. Then they use the resources in their own interest, as is happening in Nigeria now. Why should I be buying fuel for 1,350 naira per liter? Why? To come to this studio, I have to walk because there is little fuel in the car. I need to maintain it, return it to go back. I walk down here. 1,350. I don't know because I've not gone for today. If I go to buy today, I don't know if it will be 1,004. It doesn't work like that. And then you say you are running a democracy. And the other arm, the economic face of democracy is liberal market situation, where there is private ownership of property, and people produce and sell at their own price. Okay, Dangote has just produced. And then you want to be the only uptaker to buy all from Dangote, and that is monopoly and that is oligopolies. It's not allowed in a liberal economic system. But you are forcing it on us so that you will have Dangote fuel that should have been selling for about 500 naira to sell at the same price you imported the other one from abroad, so that we will say, oh, there was no use for Dangote. Come on. Dangote is not paying landing fee. It's not paying transportation fee. It's not paying port fee to harbor the ship and offload. It's not paying demurrage for the ship. if you keep the sheep beyond the days you agree with the owners, it's not paying all those. So why should the cost of production remain as yours, which you are importing from Malta, where Mr. President is said to have a refinery? What kind of thing is that? So you see, if it were not for democracy, the kind of leadership we have would not emerge. That is why, for me, I'm saying here to you that democracy cannot help Africa to be resilient. Why? Because it wastes time to deliberate. You have basket legislature. You have the kind we have now. Basket legislature in political science, Larry Diamond and other professors describe as that legislature that anything particularly coming from executive will get approve, no deliberation, no question asked, no hard questions, interrogation. This thing you have brought, to what extent does it meet the three purpose of government which I cited in the beginning?
Three goals.
Yes. To what extent does it meet it for us to approve for you? Government has a budget, appropriation acts, money allowed for you to spend for 12 months. In this country, we had that budget. But Mr. President is spending money out of budget. If we want to build Calabar-Lagos road, out of the budget. He has bought aircraft out of the budget, yacht out of the budget, a whole lot of things out of the budget. What kind of, you see where democracy, why Africa cannot have resilience? Because there is no leadership. The leadership are acting on their impulse, not on the basis of the interests of the people. Rwanda is what I call a benevolent dictatorship. Go there and see what happened. I hang up, I walk around there, I see children coming from school, walking on the side of the road. Clean. The road is clean first. Until they get to zebra crossing, they cross. So you ask yourself, and nobody's walking after them to hold cane. Leadership, impulse in their mind. And when I see that, I say, oh, back home in my country, Nigeria, children will be running across the road. Nobody runs across the road. Everybody walks to the traffic light, wait for, and then get on the zebra crossing. When the light say go, everybody stop.
Wow.
Everybody stop. Every vehicle, motorcycle, everybody's wearing helmet, handband, knee band, and everything to climb a bike. The car that carries me around when I'm there, it drove me around that day for about an hour. Then I asked him, Ernest, I just called him to wait for me next week. Does this car have horn? He said, then he did pump. He said, I thought your car doesn't have horn. Because I've not heard pump. Everybody's behaving out there, so there was no need for horn.
For horn.
So when I asked, does this car have horn? He did pump to show me. I said, so I thought your car doesn't have horn. He said, there was no need for horn. Even when we were driving by market, everybody were behaving themselves. So that analysis or illustration is back to what I call leadership. Africa. The problem with Africa, like you say, leadership, is leadership in-house. Now, if you don't have leadership in-house, how are you going to project yourself globally? Now, let me shock you. Africa is the richest continent in the world. I don't know how you got on this topic, but it is the richest. There's something called coltan, mineral called coltan. Every human being on this earth that is using hand phone has that stuff there. And guess where it's found? In Africa. Guess where it's found? Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, why would you, a continent, have what everybody is using and still remain poor? Let me tell you. In terms of gold, beyond old Soviet Union, USSR, which is now Russia, broken, and Ukraine is out, it may not be. After them, in terms of gold deposit on earth, Africa is next. Africa. Several minerals used in very big industries around the world are found in Africa in largest quantity. Now let me also tell you, Africa is the only continent that has the three imaginary lines that runs across the world. Tropic of Equator, Cancer, and Capricorn. Africa is the only continent that those three lines run across. What does that mean? It means that you have the weather condition around the world, you find it in Africa. North Africa, Cancer, middle here below Nigeria, Equator, and then Capricorn there. So you have climatic conditions all over the world found in Africa, meaning you can grow every kind of food wherever it's grown in Africa because the weather condition is there. The weather condition is there.
Yeah.
Then we have seas, rivers, and all that, and we are not taking advantage of them. Now, guess what? In spite of that element I've mentioned to you, African countries are the highest recipient of World Food Program donation. Can you see the contradiction? You have weather condition God has given you that can enable you cultivate all type of food. The food eaten in America, in Europe, eaten wherever can be cultivated here by reason of that. Okay. And you're not. Africa is the recipient of donation, food donation from World Food Program. The highest number is countries in Africa. Ethiopia was under drought. Everybody had to. Remember, Michael Jackson and co. sang the song, We Are the World, to rescue people in Africa. That song was meant for poverty-ridden starvation in Africa. After Ethiopia, Sudan is under war now. Nobody's talking about it. Sudan is under war for how many years now? Somalia has collapsed completely. Completely. Crisis everywhere. That what should not be crisis. Okay? South Sudan. So, Ghana, that used to be pride of. Gold Coast, it used to be called. Nigeria, back in the 80s, when Angola was to get independence, Gerald Ford, American president, told Nigeria who to support. Nigeria told Gerald Ford, mind your business. You cannot direct us what to do. Gerald Ford wanted Nigeria to support a group called Savimbi, the Savimbi group. Nigeria supported MPLA of Agostino Neto that led to the independence. What am I saying? Nigeria could stand its ground. We had our oil being used properly. Today, that is not the issue. Today, everything Tinubu is doing, everything Buhari did, and a subsequent person are directed by the World Bank. And what is it? The impact on the citizen is hard, difficult. Bad governance. So this is the point I'm making. Out of the 54 countries in Africa, you have very few that leadership is emerging. I say Rwanda, Seychelles, Mauritius. Apart from that, the rest. So how will you control global economy and leadership? You go to United Nations, they don't talk. United Nations spend time talking about crisis around Africa. Why do you have crisis? That is because we have something missing in Africa. The resources are there. Something is missing, leadership, to show the way to go.
So, Doctor, you've talked about so many things decaying in this particular continent, Africa. So, what is your own recommendation? What's the way forward for Africa from this point?
Fine question. First, I just posted on my Facebook recently as I was sitting down, just say, look, we've been waiting for a leader to emerge in Africa, and the leaders have not emerged. Now, the next thing is for all of us, let's become leaders.
Doctor, is that possible?
It's very possible. Look at what you're doing. I didn't know such a studio. I'm sitting down here and wondering where you got the money to set up this place. Because this technical equipment here costs money. Now, take the gauntlet, the leadership on your own, the little way you do. If you become a leader, I become a leader, and I'm doing what I'm not supposed to do, you will challenge me. You will challenge me. Then you will challenge this other guy. This guy will challenge this other guy. In the process, we'll push everybody on the right path. Because the people we're waiting for have not helped us. So that leads us to one person emerging to have a paper like this, identifying what is good for me, you, and him, and then telling everybody, look, you must toe this line, let's go. Benevolent dictatorship. He dictates. He doesn't allow you so-called democracy. Dictate based on the agenda which he has defined that is good for you, is good for me, is good for this, is good for this. Democracy in Nigeria, I just spoke somewhere yesterday, and I said, look, our political parties are what I call, they are no political parties. I call them Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. There's a novel, a literature book read in the 70s and 80s rather. I don't know, it's we call it Arabian Night. Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. Ali Baba was a thief. He went somewhere, found a thing, and began to hide and know where the thieves were hiding the thing, and he helped to steal the thing too. That's what our political parties are. Okay? Why is it that you go to two states? I want to give you that analysis and land there, so you come. You go to two states ruled by the same political party, and you cannot find programs on ground that are similar, drawn from the party manifesto, party programs. Everybody use the party, gets into office, and then think of, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then start doing something funny out of his mind, which is not part of the party program. You go to the second state, ruled by the same party, the same thing. So for me, that is not party system. That's not party system. So I keep calling them until they change, or they have real political parties. I keep calling them Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. That's what they are. So on what is to be done in Africa, benevolent dictatorship is the way out. Look at Dubai, that everybody goes to. Dubai was an island, dry land. The rivers in Dubai are artificially created. The water they artificially created. 3 months ago, they had some scientific thing done to force rain to fall. They never saw rain for over how many years?
I mean, we are enjoying rain.
So they build without having in mind gutters, and then creating gradient for water to flow out, because they have not seen what rain. So when they now force rain to fall, even water was standing in front of their house because they didn't make provision for it.
Okay.
Dubai flooded. A lot of things were destroyed. They are building it back. How did they get to do that in a dry land? Leadership. There's a country called Singapore. Singapore has no mineral. It's just a shipping port where ships pass through to reload. And the leader, Lee Kuan Yew, converted the place. And then you have a book called From Third World to First World.
First world.
I caused all my postgraduate students to read the book. It's on my table. That man sitting down there, once you come, he will show you that. You read that book, or go and look for your copy. Whatever you read with me, I'll make you to read the book. So that you know how others have moved on with leadership, and then when you have the opportunity in Nigeria, you also push it. That's why I say everybody should become a leader. Look on you. Turn Singapore to what it is. So Mohata, turn Malaysia, South Korea. Now, all those countries were ruled by people I define as benevolent dictator. They didn't care about your democracy. They didn't touch your rights to do a thing, but they force you to do what they ought to do for yourself. So, and then we will move forward. What we have here as the democracy all over Africa is not working. Rwanda is an example of a country that should look at South Africa with all the wealth. What effort have they made? When Africa move forward will be when African leaders come to consciousness that they must address poverty. When they come to consciousness, they must address unemployment. When they come to consciousness that they must address inequality. And then, of course, self-reliance. These are my 4 pillars for development, just like I gave you 3 pillars for government. Poverty. For you to take the people on the street out, you need industry, right?
Yes.
You will go and industry. Industry will come when you look around you and say, what has God deposited on ground here? Then you come to build something, to exploit it, to process it. You employ this guy, you employ this guy. When we need photography and things like this, you are there already. Those to sell were there. I was just talking to my friend when we were coming here. I said, look, instead of the governor giving people 300 or whatever, 10 million, I said, because you didn't participate in strike or in protest, that money could have resuscitated peacock paint in Etinan. And peacock paint produce, we say, okay, youth, you guys, take this and be the uptaker. Bring it to, what's this, Ikorekpene Road. People, other retailers will come and pick from you. And pick and pick and pick. Those who will go and sell in Calabar, what happened? They are engaged, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is how to deal with poverty. That's how to deal with poverty. Not giving people 5,000 or 3,000 or 9,000 or even 100,000. Manufacturing, industrialization. Akwa Ibom has a very extensive maritime front, right? The seaside, from Ikorabasi to Uruan, across Uruan, right?
Yes.
Why is Akwa Ibom not having fishing industry? You don't need to feed fish. God has fed the fish, is inside water. All you need to do is go and buy a trawler, whether Japan or China. Then come and build coal room. Because of poor electricity, make it solar, coal room. And you go and catch fish and put it there. And then you build a factory for packaging, where you package, scale fish. This is, when you build a packaging industry, what are you doing? You are creating employment. This other guy will leave this studio, say, look, you want to be taking the fish to go and sell in Lagos. He gets a job. So he takes the fish, he buys a cooling van, and take the fish. Or they cool the fish in such a way that from here to Lagos will take 12 hours, that the fish can remain frozen for 12 hours. Then another one said, I want to sell dry of this fish. He goes to IITA Ibadan. They build for you the thing to dry the fish. Because if you want to sell the fish abroad, you don't need to use firewood to dry it, to dry it. There's what is called kiln, K-I-L-N, produced by, you use steam, dry the fish to meet international standard. Then you get somebody to sell this fish in Europe. What are the standards required? America required. One of the standards is you don't bring smoke. They don't do the body of the fish and see smoke. So what am I talking about? By the time you do what I've said, what have you done?
You've created wealth.
Development, employment, and system goes. Remember that as this guy buys the fish to sell in Lagos, he's paying tax to government.
Yes.
Every level you are paying tax to government. Not this kind of tax you are taxing me. I transfer 520 naira to you. Government will take 50 kobo. What sort of nonsense is that? Transfer this levy. Transfer levy. You take this levy. You are taking money from people who are already poor. That is, by the time you do that, you will be having resilience. You won't have Africans crossing Sahara Desert to want to run to Europe, dying on the sea. Many have died in desert. They bury them. The parents don't know them. How? How would, to have resilience, use your resources for the good of the people and then sell the rest, and Africa will be able to look at World Bank on the face and say, look, I'm not going to take your loan. We'll look at IMF on the loan face and say, no, thank you for advising me.
You won't take the loan.
Yes, and tell the World Trade Organization, look, this is the price I'm going to sell my goods. If you're not going to buy it, please walk away. It's a liberal market. But today, what we produce, if at all we produce, World Bank, IMF, WTO determine the price you sell. Where have you ever seen such a thing? Maybe that's why NNPC want to do, why they are doing that to Dangote. You produce crude oil here, they stay in Belgium somewhere determined and buying out $17 per crude. Is it yours? Am I not supposed to tell you how? Again, you have no capacity to take the crude oil because the same company fixing is the one exploiting. The seven sisters, the 7 oil companies in the world, Texaco, Ajib, Mobil, name them. Ajib, yes, name them. They are the one exploiting for you because you don't have the technology. We don't have the technology because the government is not funding the universities. The universities are not having equipment like you have here to give the student first-hand tests, laboratory tests, and technology. You just teach theory. So that is my answer to that question.
Wow, this has been a very impactful, insightful conversation moment with Dr. Etim Frank. He is an associate professor of political and administrative theories, a son of this soil. Ladies and gentlemen, we've actually gave a very good touch to Africa's resilience and strength for global leadership. What is your own view about Africa? Where do you see us years from now? And don't fail to forget, wherever you are watching this from, that we have all it takes. We are endowed. We are equipped enough to progress. We have the sufficient resources to transform our territory. But in all, let's remember the three goals: that happiness, wealth creation, self-reliance are the three main goals and aims that we should pursue in order to have a good standard of life in Africa. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Etum Frank. It has been a good time. So just say your parting words to your audience before we leave.
Thank you. We need to have the revolution of everyone becoming a leader to move Africa to the point where it will be resilient to and be a leader in the global space.
Thank you very much. Until next episode, I am Ike Minekwere, your host. Bye for now.